Alex Eala already putting work in the lab.
Designing a kit with Nike. I didn't even know that happened.
That was actually a surprise for me.
In full bloom, how Nike chose Alex Eala. Nike has officially confirmed a custom, Philippines-inspired kit for Alex Eala at the 2026 French Open. And the silence from the WTA has only made the situation more striking. While world number one Aryna Sabalenka openly revealed she would not receive any custom Nike designs throughout the entire season, the global sports giant quietly delivered something extraordinary to a 21-year-old Filipino ranked just 37th in the world. No other WTA athlete on Nike's roster was given a nationally themed custom collection of this scale. The flower that changes everything. The design features the sampaguita, the national flower of the Philippines, woven directly into one of tennis's biggest stages. Not a generic symbol, not a sunflower, a sampaguita, a deliberate, specific tribute to Filipino identity, placed under the lights of Roland-Garros. The distinction matters, because the collection Nike created is officially called In Full Bloom. And it was not designed in Oregon or at the company's global headquarters. It was designed in Manila. That single detail changes the entire story. Why Alex? Why now? Eala became the first Filipina athlete in history to receive a design-credited Nike retail collection, carrying a distinct national identity. Nike commissioned Manila-based artist Georgina Camus to create a capsule collection, a t-shirt, tote bag, and cap, built around the sampaguita flower woven into a tennis court-inspired design. Released through Park Access, Nike's official Philippine retail partner, the collection sold out within hours. All of this arrives as Eala enters the 2026 French Open ranked world number 37, with a first-round match scheduled against Eva Liss on May 25th. What makes the moment even more remarkable is this. Eala is currently the only WTA athlete marketed by Nike with a fully bespoke, culturally specific retail line tied directly to her national identity. The contrast nobody can ignore when Nike's confirmed 2026 Roland-Garros women's roster was revealed. The contrast became impossible to look away from. The lineup: Sabalenka, Anisimova, Andreeva, Keys, Baptiste, and Eala. 5 of those athletes will wear Nike's standard-issue tour dress for the clay season. Generic colors. Familiar cuts. The kind of design social media has repeatedly labeled uninspired and predictable. Sabalenka herself reportedly expressed frustration over her kits, confirming she would not receive any custom designs for the 2026 season. The world number one wears what almost everyone else wears. The world number 37 from the Philippines has a Vogue cover, a TikTok trending designer capsule, and a February 2026 invitation to Nike's Oregon headquarters, where the brand posted a single Tagalog phrase publicly: "Salamat sa bisita." Thank you for the visit. That contrast is not accidental. That contrast is the statement. It started at Wimbledon. This story didn't begin at the 2026 French Open. It began months earlier, on the most iconic grass court in tennis. In July 2025, Alex Eala stepped onto center court at Wimbledon to face defending champion Barbara Krejcikova. She was ranked outside the top 50. She had never won a main draw Grand Slam singles match. And yet, one small detail stood out. In her hair was a custom accessory quietly designed for her by Nike, a sampaguita-inspired hair tie, featuring the Philippine national flower, in front of 15,000 spectators and a global broadcast audience. TNT Sports later confirmed the accessory was a custom Nike gift. Eala described her Wimbledon debut as a dream moment. But within the broader commercial context, Nike wasn't simply creating sentiment. The brand was observing, measuring visibility, cultural resonance, and audience reaction on one of sport's most watched stages. The response, as the story goes, was strong enough that the experiment escalated. Roughly 6 weeks later, the In Full Bloom collection launched, moving from a subtle on-court detail into a full retail statement built around identity, symbolism, and national imagery. Authorship: not just branding. Georgina Camus, the Manila-based artist commissioned by Nike, later shared the design on Instagram with a caption that spread thousands of times. She described the piece as a symbol of discipline, courage, and full-circle growth, created to inspire the next generation to bloom in their own time. Nike did not simply assign an in-house designer in the United States to add a national flag to standard apparel. Instead, the brand brought in a Filipino artist to design for a Filipino athlete on a global stage. In this framing, it is presented less as conventional branding and more as authorship, where cultural identity is embedded into the creative process itself. The Philippines isn't a marketing backdrop. It is the creative source. The Vogue moment in August 2025, Alex appeared on the cover of Vogue Philippines wearing the In Full Bloom collection. Vogue covers are not given to athletes considered merely promising. They are reserved for figures who already carry meaning beyond their immediate results, athletes who have moved from sport into broader cultural significance. By placing Eala on that cover wearing Nike gear coded to the Philippines, the brand made a statement about visibility and identity that no press release could have delivered as cleanly. She was positioned not as a regional ambassador, but as a central figure in how Nike chooses to represent a market, a culture, and a story. Oregon. Tagalog. A signal in plain sight. On February 27, 2026, ABS-CBN confirmed that Nike flew Eala to its global headquarters in Beaverton, Oregon. The brand then shared photos from her visit publicly, captioned in Tagalog. Nike does not typically bring regional ambassadors to Beaverton in this manner. Such visits are generally reserved for athletes with global priority status. And when a brand shifts into using your native language publicly on a global corporate channel, it is rarely a coincidence. It is a signal. In the way this narrative is being read by those paying close attention, it suggests Eala is not being treated as a short-term marketing placement. She is being built into a long-term brand trajectory, positioned for the global stage, not just the Southeast Asian market. The atmosphere shifts. Fans in the stands at Wimbledon reportedly described a noticeable shift in atmosphere the moment Eala walked out wearing that floral hair detail, with some suggesting the crowd reaction intensified the moment her name was called. That is not nothing. That is a brand watching a crowd respond to identity, to story, to meaning, and deciding, deliberately and strategically, to pour fuel on it. What it all means: one player represents uniformity at the top of the sport. The other represents something the game hasn't seen before, a highly visible, culturally specific branding push built not around a ranking, not around a Grand Slam title, but around identity, story, and the power of a community that refused to be invisible. Nike is one of the most culturally attuned brands on the planet. They do not make moves like this without understanding exactly what they are doing. They saw the crowds at Roland-Garros packed with red, white, blue, and yellow. They saw the videos going viral. They saw a young woman from Manila making an entire continent feel seen, and they understood before almost anyone in the tennis establishment did that this was not a moment. This was a movement, and they designed a flower for it. When the king of clay gives you his time, Rafael Nadal, 22-time Grand Slam champion, 14-time winner of the French Open, the greatest clay court player in the history of tennis, does not give his time carelessly. He does not attach his name to athletes he does not believe in. He does not offer guidance as a courtesy. His academy was built on a philosophy of ruthless discipline, and the mentorship that flows from it carries the same standard. Which is why what happened in April 2026 means exactly what people think it means. Eala appeared at the Laureus World Sports Awards in Madrid wearing a custom Filipiniana-inspired gown. When asked about her connection to Nadal, she said simply, "Anything I can take from Rafa, I'll take with pride." Around the same period, Kia Corporation launched a joint campaign featuring both Nadal and Eala under a single tagline, "Two generations of moving differently." When the 14-time French Open champion allows his name and image to be placed alongside yours in a generational campaign, you are no longer being framed as a prospect. You are being framed as a long-term project. A strategic bet on Southeast Asia. Nike's decision to build Eala's identity around the Philippines rather than purely around her ranking is, in the way this story is being read, signaling something far larger than an individual career trajectory. It is being interpreted as a strategic move towards Southeast Asia as an emerging tennis market. Consider the numbers. Roughly 110 million Filipinos on the island and across one of the most geographically dispersed diaspora communities on the planet, but without a long history of Grand Slam tennis icons to anchor fan identity. No poster on the wall. No name to chase. No face that looked like theirs at the top of the sport. Until now. From that perspective, Nike is establishing early, deep positioning in a space that competitors, Adidas, Asics, Lululemon, have not yet meaningfully localized within tennis culture. The In Full Bloom collection is being treated internally, in this framing, as a proof of concept, that tennis apparel can move beyond generic tour uniforms into culturally coded storytelling tied to nation, heritage, and personality. The online criticism of standard clay season kit designs, widely dismissed as fan noise, is being reread by some analysts as something more significant. Market feedback. A measurable demand for cultural specificity and athlete identity that the sport has historically failed to supply. Eala is the supply. Tournament stakeholders are watching events from Indian Wells to the US Open are reportedly observing closely how this model performs when a nationally branded athlete enters a Grand Slam with significant cultural momentum behind her. Whether this represents a permanent structural shift in tennis marketing or an isolated case of elevated branding remains genuinely uncertain. But the conversation has been started. And conversations like this, once started, are very difficult to stop. If she wins even a single round at the 2026 French Open while wearing Philippines-coded gear, the compounding attention could force every major sponsor in tennis to reconsider how WTA marketing strategies are built going forward. The entire projected draw is being read as a narrative in itself. A first-round match against seeded opposition. A potential second-round clash with Emma Navarro. A possible third-round meeting with Naomi Osaka. A hypothetical fourth-round encounter with Aryna Sabalenka. Whether she progresses through that bracket or not, this is already being described as one of the most heavily marketed Filipino tennis moments in history, with the US Open positioned as the next major benchmark in her season story. 6 days before Paris, but the road into Roland-Garros has not been smooth. 6 days before the tournament began, Eala suffered a first-round loss at the Stuttgart Open, falling to Anastasia Zakharova in straight sets. She had taken the opening set. Then the momentum shifted, and the final scoreline was one-sided against an opponent ranked outside the top 70. She did not post about the result publicly. She did not offer excuses. She traveled directly to Paris, signed autographs for fans waiting outside the French Open grounds, and reportedly spent the next 5 days working on clay court adjustments with advisors connected to the broader system associated with Nadal. 5 days. That was the reset window. 5 days to recalibrate physically and mentally before the opening round of a Grand Slam under the heaviest spotlight of her career. In the larger story being built around her, even a loss like that gets folded into the arc. Another data point about pressure, rapid visibility, and the relentless demands on a young woman who is simultaneously learning a sport, carrying a nation, and redefining what a tennis marketing narrative can look like. The chain of defining moments. Step back and look at the full sequence. The Sampaguita-inspired hair accessory, first seen at Wimbledon 2025, on center court, in front of a global broadcast audience. The In Full Bloom collection, designed not in Oregon but in Manila by a Filipino artist for a Filipino athlete. The Vogue Philippines cover, reserved not for breakout prospects but for figures who already carry cultural meaning. The Nike headquarters visit in Beaverton, Oregon, captioned publicly in Tagalog. The discourse surrounding Sabalenka's standard kits and the contrast it created. Nadal's mentorship and Eala's own words about taking anything from him with pride. Kia's generational campaign, placing her alongside the greatest clay court player who ever lived. Each moment individually is significant. Together, they form something that looks less like a marketing campaign and more like institutional confirmation of a shift already underway. Beyond rankings. Beyond results. Here is what is certain as she walks onto court. Philippe Chatrier on May 25th. The In Full Bloom collection has already been released and sold out across multiple markets. The Vogue cover has already circulated widely. The Nike promotional moments have already become part of her permanent public image. Nike's direction, in this reading, is already set. A win at Roland-Garros while wearing the collection could accelerate everything, potentially influencing whether Nike expands her into a fully bespoke Grand Slam wardrobe for the US Open later in the season. But that remains speculative. What is no longer speculative is this. The conversation has moved beyond rankings. Alex Eala is now being discussed not simply as a competitor on the WTA Tour, but as part of a broader, deeper story about visibility, identity, and the way modern tennis narratives are constructed in a world that is finally, irreversibly, expanding its definition of who this sport belongs to. Rankings catch up to perception, eventually. The question being asked now is not whether she will rise. The question is how high and how fast the world will rise with her. Philippines.